but
Yeah,
it's
there's like
not.
a red.
There we
There we
go.
go. Okay. Yep. We're good.
Very good. Okay, so I thought I'd start by looking at the admin menu and database tables, and that would give you sort of a structure that the other things can kind of plug into when we get into more detailed discussions. So I'm going to start with the admin menu, and I expect that to take a full hour, maybe more. And then I have a very short presentation on user administration, how to set up users and control what they have access to. And then on Friday, we'll do the indicator, setting up a new indicator, and setting up a new indicator view.
Hey Lois, am I the only one that is having trouble logging into admin from home?
I think so.
Okay. Because I can do just my local, but I can't do the other.
Yeah, that's so strange. And your local, well, we'll talk about it offline.
Yeah, I was wondering, I guess it must all kind of eventually write to the same place.
Hopefully. It depends
Because
on how you're set up.
yeah, I set up users and then they say they can get in and I've done it from home, so from the local. So
Yeah, sounds like it's working. Okay, so here's just a quick review of the IBIS application and the different parts and pieces. So the admin application is a web interface that sits over a relational database, and it provides the weird provides the I'm sorry, it's like I've got multiple screens and one of them is changing slides and the other one isn't. Kind of strange. Anyway, provides a more user-friendly access to the database. And it also publishes to the view application. So there are Java controllers in both applications that talk to each other. And when you publish XML to the view application, the admin application dives into the relational database and it extracts the data and it wraps it in XML and then copies it to the view application. And okay, so now the admin menu, and these are, just for another point of reference, these are, oh, they're not on my local. Anyway, let me get actually to where you can see it. Sorry. These are those XML files at the root of the XML folder. I'm getting onto the jump box. And now the production server. And if I go into my web apps and IBIS content XML, these are the XML files that get published to the view application that are in the admin menu. So that's for just another point of reference of what we're talking about with the admin menu. So when you're in the admin application, if you have admin privileges, you see this button at the top, admin menu. You're probably all familiar with this. And these are the This is the sub menu for admin, or this is the admin menu. And I'm just going to go down the list and we'll look at each one of these. So indicators in the app looks like this. And in this presentation, I use Hawaii's application as the screenshots, but New Mexico's database for the table and data. So the indicator table, these are the, if you look in the admin database, you can see all the fields that are there, and looking at the table, this is what the data look like. And any questions, just holler. Okay, topics. And for NMIBIS, these control, actually for both applications, this controls access to the topic page from the indicator report. In NMIBIS, it also automatically generates the indicator links on the topic page. For NM tracking, I think that's manually controlled. Here's what the table looks like. And these are just this is the NM IBIS list. The list goes on and there are tracking measures down below. Now, one thing I wanted to point out is that I've seen some tracking indicators that are selecting NM IBIS from the NM IBIS list of topics. And the problem with that is there's a URL here to the topic page that is connected with that, making that association. But if you are on an NM tracking indicator report page and you try to go to one of the NM IBIS topic pages, you'll get an error. So you don't want to select the NM IBIS topics. And here's what that looks like.
Lois, is that like an access table or what is that?
Yeah, this is my access linked table. That is.
Do you ever get in there into access and just edit it from there, or do you always do anything through the web interface?
There are things that are easier to do directly or, through this linked table, doing it in access directly in the database.
Okay.
And one of those things is setting indicator editors. So let's say that tracking has a new staff member and the previous staff member had access to all of the cancer incidence indicators, and you want this new person to have that same access. Well, it's much easier to just go into the database and change the username of the person who has access. If you try to do it through the admin app, you have to go to each indicator and deselect the former staff member and select the new staff member.
Right.
So that's kind of
and so that table just came up when you clicked on it. It came up automatically, or what?
Which in the admin app?
Yeah, the access table.
Yeah, how do you get to the access table?
I go to, let's see. I've created an access database with links to the production database. Oops. And it's being a little slow, but this just looks like an access an access database, and then there's a list of tables, and if I click on the table, it comes up and looks like this. All right, let's see. I was going to show when you get here, this says boundary, not boundary, haha, private joke for query developers. This is a boundary. Up above here are NM IBIS topics. Below here are NM tracking topics. And if you're working on a tracking indicator, you want to select from these. And an NM IBIS indicator, you select from these. It's just a training issue. It's one of the things that, one of the reasons Garth recommends that we have a separate database for NM tracking, but that has its own drawbacks. So that we do not.
Are there duplicated indicators like the
Like poverty,
infant
child
mortality?
poverty
Yeah.
for children under 5. Yes.
Okay.
And
So
that
sorry.
for that one, I would choose, I think, characteristics for NM IBIS, but for NM tracking, you'd want to choose the child-led, I think is what that's related to.
Okay.
So those indicators that are used by both apps are problematic because if you select both of those, if you're in NM IBIS, child-led poisoning topic won't come up. And if you're in NM tracking, the characteristics topic won't come up, but they will appear. So maybe we need to figure out a workaround for that. Fortunately, there's only a handful of those, but still, it would be nice to have a workaround. Okay. Let's see if my database ever came up. It did. So this is my access linked tables database, and I should have topic indicator 2 topic. Where's just topic? There it is. So I double click on it. It links to the production database, and this is what the table looks like. I know it's too small to see, but that is the size of it. Okay. Next, initiative objectives. So this right now we're pretty much just using Healthy People 2030. The old Healthy People 2020 set is in there, but we're not using it anymore. And so there are really 3 tables associated here with the initiative objectives. We have the initiative list, which kind of initiative. And Stephanie, this is where we were talking about maybe doing the notifiable diseases as an initiative list.
Right.
Oops.
That would be in the state.
Actually, we'd create a new initiative.
Notifiable.
Call it notifiable diseases is the title. I don't know what we'd name it. Something similar. Without spaces and special characters. And then in the topic list, this is like an intermediate table that has, in Healthy People, they have these topics like arthritis, adolescent health, etc. And then if you go into one of those topics, then you get the individual objectives. For notifiable diseases, I'm not sure if we'd have a topic list within there. I guess it would make sense to have like communicable diseases and zoonotic diseases and other stuff.
Would that be all the stuff in that IDIS query that gets updated every night, or more stuff?
So the notifiable diseases, there's a standard list. And I would, if I were setting this up, I would look at that list and see what's on there. And I don't know how.
I can share that with you, Rena. There's quite a few, and they're not
And we
all
just,
infectious.
but they're all going to be in NMEDs.
I don't know.
Maybe not.
Because I mean,
Yeah, 'cause
where else would they come from? The data, I mean.
Well, there's like injury firearm reporting, firearm injury reporting. So I don't know if that pops up in NMEDs or not.
Yeah, it could come from syndromic surveillance.
Right. So yeah, there's different.
Yeah, I think so.
Monkeypox.
Monkeypox. No.
All right. So these are what the tables look like. They're pretty simple, except that they're long-ish. But initiative, initiative topic, and topic objective. And the way these are used are you can have them show up on the indicator report page, and it'll give the title and the US target, initiative, objective. So in the table, there's the US target. Hang on. Sorry, phone call for Paul, who just walked in the door. Okay. So there's a target value and, oh, that's annoying me. That shows up on the indicator report page along with the description, which is the, hang on. Okay, I'm back. Anyway, so the objective, the wording and the value show up on the indicator report page if you want them to. Sorry. All right, next, data sources is the list of data sources, and this is the table that provides the data source on the indicator report page and on the query result page. So that's what it looks like in Hawaii's admin application. And here's what the table looks like. And one of the things, let me bring up the app. One of the things that you should know about this table is that there are data issues and a URL that are associated with the data source. So the title, birth certificate data, that's what you can select for your indicator report. The text is what appears. There's a bullet, and then the text appears as the data in the data sources section. And then if there is data issues text in this table, this text will also appear under data issues in both the indicator report and the query result page. And the URL also appears, I think it comes up after the text in the bullet.
In that table there, we still have the CASA, right? But is that one that's like inactive?
Oops, God. It looks so realistic. I click on the table. Yeah, it's probably still in there, but not being used. I mean, I'm guessing that
Okay,
it's
so we don't,
still.
there's no harm in leaving stuff in the table, even if it's not being used, or we don't have to take it back out, or.
No. We could inactivate it. There is an active flag. BD,
Oh,
okay, Bieber income was inactivated. It's this one. Drinking Water Bureau has been inactivated. I don't know if that's accurate or not. CASA, we could inactivate it and then no one can select it. Just like that. Okay.
yeah, I guess I was just kind of asking because if like I wanted to like run a report or something just based off that table and just select only the ones that are still active, then it would depend on that flag there being up to date.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And then, Rena, earlier you asked if you have a link to the Access database. What you have to do is create the database on your machine locally and then link to the production database, and we can do that when you want, when you're ready. It's
Yeah, we
helpful
can just do it
sometimes to just,
another time. Like,
yeah,
because I guess Chelsea
see.
and Stephanie will need it as well.
Yeah. Now it's kind of, as you know, I'm sure, but I'll say it anyway. It's kind of risky modifying things in the database itself if you get too complex, because the admin application provides a certain level of protection against doing stupid things. And yeah, you just have to be careful and only do really simple things in the database itself so you don't get into trouble, create duplicate records, do other weird stuff, enter illegal characters, you know, all kinds of stupid stuff that has been known to
Yeah,
have
I
been
was,
done.
which I do every day.
Yeah, me too.
I was just wondering if like it's a good backup, like since for whatever reason I can only get in through my local link, that if like if I just couldn't get in because there was something funky going on with the way that we access the application normally, if this is like a little backup route, that maybe I can access it this way if all my other points of entry seem to be malfunctioning.
Yep, it's possible. Like I said, it's a little risky. Okay, dimensions. These are Hawaii's dimensions. They have very few. They only have, yeah, they only do BRFS indicators by county, race, and sexual or gender minority. They're a very simple example. New Mexico, on the other hand, a little more complicated. So there's again, two levels of detail. There's a dimension table that has the dimension name and the dimension title and some other fields like community flag, which if community flag is turned on, then it makes it available to be used in the community reports, that sort of stuff. And then the dimension value table for any given dimension, we need to know what are the possible values and what those values mean or how they should be labeled. And another thing about the dimension, or a similar thing about the dimension table to the data source table is, let's see, I can't remember which one makes sense. Okay, there's is community, is period, is geography, is proxy, is dynamic. I don't think most of these are relevant to us except is community. These others would be more relevant if we use the data, the centralized dimensions for our queries, but we've decided not to in New Mexico, so we don't need to have these things checked. And dimension values, pretty simple. All right. Measures. So lots of different measures. One thing about the measure table that I'm pretty sure I have, oh, I keep clicking that by mistake. I'm pretty sure I have said before is that I have a lot of percentage measures in here from trying to have a titled measure for all the BRFS indicators. And then it became clear that it was just unworkable and that there was a simple thing that Garth did, which was the measure title override, because the only difference between these percentage measures is the title. And the things that are important are the desirable value, the number of decimals, if you want to change that, and whether it's age adjusted or not. And the reason age adjusted is important is that, again, you have data notes that are attached to this time the measure. And if you need to change a data note, like if there's a typo in here, or you decide you want different standard wording, this is where you fix it. And also when you're going in to update indicator reports and you see this age adjusted text in a data note in the indicator report, you need to get rid of it, because if it's there and here, it'll show up twice, potentially with different wording. So, yeah, so there aren't very many measures we really need to use. I've kept the different measures for cases, deaths, ED, and hospital admissions versus discharges, because if we get to a point where we want to do comparisons between with our indicator data between different indicators, it's nice to have to know that, you know, this rate per 100,000 is deaths and another rate per 100,000 is hospitalizations. And those aren't eligible to be directly compared. With percentage, it's like, well, let's just give it a good title. And people, you know, if they want to compare the percentage of children below poverty to the percentage unemployed, you know, that kind of makes sense if they're paying attention. I don't know. It's a judgment call. But I don't use very many of these measures, and I think all these percentage ones, I haven't deactivated them because I've used some of them, and I need to go through with a fine-tooth comb and figure out what's being used and change those indicators so they're using a more generic measure, and then I can deactivate all of these and eventually delete them. But until I do that, please know not to use all those silly ones. Oh, let's see now. So measure data note, desirable value, and here's what it looks like in the table. Data notes for the age adjusted and so forth. Okay, value type. So a value type is one thing that differentiates one measure from another. So one of the things on the measure type, well, let's go in here. Cancer incidents, incident cases. So one of the things on the measures, in the measure table is it's related to a value type. And this also is something that indicates whether two measures can be directly compared. So if one is a rate per 100,000 and another is a rate per 1,000, you wouldn't compare those two numbers, obviously. Same as age adjusted. If one's a crude rate, one's an age adjusted rate, those are not directly comparable. So,
Hey Lois, I put a question in the chat about that. On that age adjusted, I know on those notes it says it's based on something from the year 2000. Is it due for like updates?
no, after the 2000 census, we stopped using 1940 as the standard year for age adjusting. So maybe in another 60 years, I don't know.
Oh, good. I'll be dead then.
Yeah, or we'll at least be retired. So
Yeah.
no, don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
Value type. The format pattern, and this is where, if I have I do have something, percentage 1 decimal place, here's the value, the format pattern for that. And somewhere I have a 2 decimal places where I would have the .00 and use a percent sign. I forget which indicators needed that, but there are some, and I noticed something yesterday. There's a rate. Oh, it was the infant mortality by cause of death. It's like a rate of 0.1 versus 0.2. It's like, we could probably use another decimal point in there, but I'd have to create a new value type, rate per 1K, with 2 decimal places, and then use that value type, create a new measure, and use the new value type for the new measure, and then use the new measure for that query, which is all possible, but I didn't go there yesterday.
No, it seems like a lot of work unless someone's really demanding it.
Yeah. Okay. Value attributes. So there's 2 things that are easy to confuse, and I think you guys are are experienced enough at this point to know the difference, but I'll just point it out. Value attributes are attributes of the value. So of the rate per 100,000 or of the percentage, there's an attribute, and it's basically the data stability, and I think that maybe is about it. Let's see.
Stable doesn't show up though, right?
What doesn't show up?
Stable.
It does not. In Hawaii, they use it, and they have
Oh, okay.
their code is the word, the words, the text string.
Okay.
In New
Okay.
Mexico, we use a pound and pound. In Hawaii, they say, let's just put the word there. And, it's a little easier for users to understand immediately what it means. And then they have different definitions for stable depending on the data source. But in New Mexico, we just use the unstable, very unstable, and the codes, suppressed and survey suppressed. These show up for suppressed in the queries, but not in the indicator report data table. It's just a little fluke. And then there are some special value attributes for NM tracking, like counties where there's no air quality monitor. It's like, we don't want to just say, oh, we don't have those data, don't worry about it. It's like, well, no, there's a reason that it's missing. We had a funny meeting one time about missing notation, the missings. Anyway. All right. Ancillary values is the other thing that has to do with the value, but these are additional values that appear along with the main value. So the confidence limits, numerator and denominator, are basically the ancillary values. We have special numerators or ancillary values for surveys because we have special labels. I think that's about it. These, I don't think we're really using those here because these, at least reliability category, is a value attribute, not an ancillary value. But there was somewhere where, I don't know, we thought we might want to map the actual categories, so we needed to put them in a table, whatever. Here's what the fields are in the database, and here's what the data look like in the database, in New Mexico's database. So you can see numerator and denominator, count and population count versus survey, number and category, and number of respondents. So that is the difference there. View templates. Right now, we're only using the default template, but there are other templates that have been created. Compact, complete, these are just things that Garth created with different levels of information in them that we could use if we figured out why we would want to use them. They're in there.
I have a question about that, kind of, I guess, related to 2020 census. So whenever Chris has time to do whatever he needs to do, then will he just create like a new small area template based on the 2020 tracks, and then somehow like we put that somewhere in IBIS, and then the maps will eventually like start relying on that?
Yeah,
like the shape files and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so So the shape file gets converted to a GeoJSON that if you want to look at them, are in here, geo. So these are all of the available shape files. And some of them are just point files that we're not using anymore. But geo
Okay.
small area is in here, SAREA. So there's a small area JSON with polygons, a label JSON that has the text and where to put it, the geo coordinates for where to put the text. And so these are files that Chris makes. And yeah, so here's the shape file. It's a polygon shape file, geo small area for geo ID number 1, and this is the dimension value. And these are the points. So if you draw a line and you start at this point, and then you draw it to this point, and then to this point, and then to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, eventually you'll end up back where you started, and you've drawn a polygon. And so that's what a shape file looks like when it's been converted to a GeoJSON.
Oh, okay. And he does all that in ArcGIS.
He does.
Thanks for showing us that.
Sure.
I always wondered.
It's like a big mystery.
It's been a mystery to me.
No kidding. I know nothing of GIS.
And then we have to create, let's see. I think we have a small area. All layer, selection layer, states, all layers. No, these are, so these are, what are these? These control the colors and what shows up on in the map layers selection. So there's a base map. This is like your base starting point. And then it specifies what's going to show up, you know, what's available to be used. There's a lot of stuff that's not actually used. But this is like, these are the colors. If you have a 5, is that 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I guess it's this one. 5 color map. Those are the colors used. Right now we're just doing 5 colors. But anyway, sometime, you know, just snoop around and look in there. It's a little arcane, but not too bad. US states, this is the zoom level way out to the US, made for data for US states. And there are yellow, blue, purple, yellow, green, blue, and yellow, orange, red variants. All right, let's see. Next, charts. This is the list of charts. These are Hawaii's again, and charts detail. If I look in charts, and let's say I go to line, no error bars with data labels. Okay.
What's my favorite?
Yeah, I know. That's why I went there.
That's a good point, because like if you ever run into like just a chart that just won't work, what was it? I was missing a file or something in my web apps.
Yeah, so this name in the table, in the database, has to correspond to a file name. Let's see. Oh, chart. JSON Kendo, you need a file with this name, line no error bars data labels, line no error bars data labels, and these are simple, for the most part, simple little files. They get appended to the base chart file, base chart, that has all of the Kendo stuff. These are the colors. If you ever want to change the colors on your chart, start with a different one, get rid of the light yellows because nobody can read the information in them, whatever. You can go into base chart. This is just an amendment to the base chart.json file that says error bars false. So it replaces this series with no error bars and labels visible true. So that's just a little very brief review there.
How do you think that happened, that I was just missing that one file?
You know, when you downloaded or updated your content, maybe those weren't in there originally, because we don't update the content every time we refresh or, you know, upgrade our app. We usually just do the view app file, the web app. So these
Oh,
are in
okay.
content, and, you know, we update view, but content, the folder is so huge that we don't usually update the whole thing. And gosh, it looks like there's stuff in the repository that I don't have in my content, but yeah, you can always check. These should be in the repository. Let's see. JSON leaflet. No, JSON Kendo. So it looks like mine is up to date, but yeah, it's just you know, just something that got overlooked
Huh.
when updating
I
your
just
app,
wondered if,
installing it.
yeah, like if some update process might have terminated before it got everything or something like that, because I just, in my little pea brain, couldn't figure out why I didn't have it in the first place, because it's
Mm-hmm.
not like that's a new type of chart.
Right, just originally when we did your local app, either it wasn't in there or I don't know.
Yeah, so if that ever happens to y'all and you just have one type of chart that won't make and every other one will, it was a big mystery for a minute.
Yeah, so this chart name is the file name in the JSON Kendo folder. There's what it looks like. It's just a kind of a connection between the app and the indicator. And there's a similar thing going on for maps. Again, this is the Hawaii list. This is the New Mexico list of maps that we're using. And this, you know, similar to chart, this name corresponds to the JSON leaflet map name. So default yellow, blue, purple. This is the one mostly we use. And there's a base map, and then this is a amendment to the base map with different colors. All right. Indicator sets. These are sets of indicators that our community reports are based on. I think right now that's all we use them for. So we have, IBIS has 5 different sets. We have the 4 sets for the health outcomes model, and then a mental health set. And then IBIS-PH has a single set. If you want more eventually, it's a matter of going and creating it in the indicator sets, adding a new one. And then once you're in there, indicator sets, hello. Once you're in there, you can select from the set of all available indicators to choose what's going to be in your set. And like Stephanie, if you want to get rid of one, say it's not really doing what you want, you just deactivate it and save. And one thing that's important that I should not neglect to say is that you can save these to the admin database. Once you make a modification, you save it. It saves it to the admin database. But once you make a change and save it, you'll get a publish button. And maybe that was there already. I don't know. But you have to publish it because that puts that XML file on the server. So let's go back in here. Make fertility, total fertility, turn it back on and save it. I've saved it to the database, but I didn't publish it, so I don't need to republish it. But yeah, so you can make a change in the database and that's all well and good, but you won't see the change until you publish the XML. Hang on. Sorry about that. I had to deal with my dog. When he wants something, he just pushes up my mouse hand. I thought he wanted to go out, but he didn't, so sorry for the delay. Okay, so indicator sets. Here's what it looks like. Authorities. So in Hawaii, they just have one authority. It's admin for the admin application. These are how you set your user authorities. And why did I not have a table for that? Oh, because it has, because I didn't want to publish this. It has, you know, passwords for authorities and that kind of stuff. So, admin authorities. So there are different types of authorities, and this admin is for the admin application, and that's the authority that allows the user to see the admin menu and to make changes to it. And one thing I've done in New Mexico is I took the users button off of here because we were giving broader access to the admin menu so that query developers could see the measures and dimensions and data sources tables and understand better how their queries were being affected by what's in these tables. but I didn't want to give them access to user passwords and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to keep that more decentralized, or less. I wanted to have less access to that. But anyway, that's the next slide. So admin application access gives you access to the admin menu. It also allows you to do certain things like add new indicators, add new views, and add new indicators, add new views. Oh, and see the data sets and mess with the data sets. You kind of need special training, which we're going to do on Friday, before you should try going there. So it's not something that we allow general users to look at. Okay, now these other authorities are for secure queries. So this authority allows a user to see the selections list. So if I go here and data set index, this selection option will appear if a person has this authority. Same with mortality. This authority is secure query, vital records, and health statistics. That authority will allow a user to, I think it's get to this page, or, run a query from on the secure vital records queries. So, and then we have tribal queries. We have authorities set up for each tribe so they can run queries and see their own tribe's results. And we can actually do row level authority so that if they look at a table by tribe, let's say it's Navajo, they could see Big Navajo and whatever the Alamo, Rama, Tahajali bands, Navajo bands data are, stuff like that. Okay.
And Lois, I have a question about the secure queries that are on IBIS but not on tracking. Is it the same with the queries as with the indicators, in that if we were to duplicate those on tracking, we'd have to have a separate set, or could we just pull them into tracking?
I think you can just pull them into tracking.
Okay.
I mean, you'd have to create the, and I don't know, I don't think I can make this bigger, but you'd have to create content XML, secure query module. So in tracking, you'd need to have the query module folder.
Okay.
And you'd have to put it in your selection index. But once you do that, there's nothing, it's using the same database for authentication, same user list, same user authorities. I think it would work fine to pull them in.
That's fantastic. And then for the secure queries, who's the ultimate authority on who authorizes that?
It depends. Vital records for births and deaths and infant mortality. And they have a process which I don't know, Rena, if you've seen a lot of that activity with that, or if they're even aware. I think they're aware of the process and how they have to approve user access to query their data securely.
Okay.
For HID data, basically for any data source, it's the data steward.
Okay.
Except for tribal, it's the tribe.
Right. Okay, great. That's really what I need to know. Thank you.
Right. Like for vital records, I've just asked Jenny. She's got
Okay.
had a lot of new EPIs that need stuff, but like, for example, I guess like some of the data stores are not like so active or proactive, and well, might just kind of kick that over to you to prove it, even though that's not exactly how it's supposed to work.
So yeah, for vital records staff, I would just go on. Jenny says we have a new staff member, give them access, just orally, or an email might be good.
Right.
Little documentation. For vital records other, there's a process and a form, and you need to
Right.
get
I'm
notified.
familiar with the vital records. It's just the hidden ED. So
HID and ED, I don't know that there's a process. I just ask, when I was there, I would just ask Ken.
got it. Okay. Thank you.
They might have a process now. I'm not sure.
I don't think they do.
And then
Well,
for
maybe.
cancer, I would ask the tumor registry folks.
Right. And that's the only actual database that we have set up in tracking with secure queries. But I wanted to bring in other secure queries. So it sounds like it's not a very difficult process.
It's not difficult, not with varying levels of formality, shall I say.
I'm more than happy to establish that. I just want to see if it can happen. Sounds like it's from a technological standpoint, it's not an issue. It's really just getting the permissions. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And it's just up to us. Or I should say you three, to make sure that some reasonable process or the appropriate process happens.
Sure. Right. Okay. Great.
Okay, users, and this is the admin menu tab that I removed from the admin menu, but it's pretty easy to get there. And the way I do it is I go to the indicator list, and then up here, I don't know that you can see this, but I just double click on the word indicator and type in user, because that's the URL that provides the user list. And then once you're in there, you can get to the detail. Now I created this editor user, user ID editor, password admin editor 1. I created that, and I think you all were in on this because you all have admin rights, but it wasn't clear how that differed from a regular user. And if you want to go into the admin application, seeing what a regular user would see, you can go to this, you can log in as editor and then, see how the options are different. And I also did this as a way to see, if a regular user doesn't have access to it, it's probably because it requires some more technical knowledge that, so you may want to avoid experimenting on your own, should we say. Anyway, so know that you can log in as a regular old editor, and then you can see that if someone wants to change their password or you want to change the password, you can. Then user authorities, this editor has no authorities. User roles, they're an indicator editor. And I don't know which indicators they've been set up to edit. I don't remember. I think there were a couple. I don't use these roles too much. But if they want to edit an indicator, they won't be selectable from the indicator unless they have this role activated. So let's look at, for instance, let me see what, let's see, user to indicator. So this is that table where I said if sometimes it's easier to just go in to the database and change it. So Ariana came on, was helping, and so it's really easy in Access to, copy records and paste them in Excel and then bring them back over. So I could go in here, copy all these records if Ariana's gone and someone else comes in and you want her to have the same rights to edit indicators. I could delete these, copy the records into Excel, go back and do a paste append and put the records back in the database. So it's a pretty easy process. Oh, and I was going to see what editor had access to. So editor has access to a bunch of stuff. Let's look at maybe arthritis prevalence. Should be right here. Okay, so I go into here and I see editors for arthritis prevalence. We have Christopher and there's editor. Now, if I go into editor and I make it so they don't have editing rights, if I go back to that indicator and refresh, now I don't see editor as an option. So in order to appear on this list of potential editors, they need to have editor, the editor role. Oh, I'm going right into the number 2 training, which is user administration. So, did I save that? I guess I did. Now, if I go in, editor, there she is. Owner, there can be only one owner. And again, they'd need to have that indicator role. Indicator owner. And those are really the only ones that I use as far as roles: admin, owner, and editor. All right, now, where were we? Editor, example, blanked our passwords. This is what the table looks like. And then org units. I think this is the final tab. So org unit is the footer, is information for the footers that appear for indicator reports as well as queries. So the context text, the footer would include the title and the contact text. So and these go out of date, and probably a lot of them need to be updated. So here's contact Annalise Mayette, substance abuse epidemiology. Let's see. I can't even find it. Let's see. Find substance. Oh, alcohol epi. Substance use epi. So the title, description, which often isn't used, and so what shows up in the footer is the title and the contact text. If you want a URL for their program, you can put that in there too. Oh, and here's the a screenshot of where the XML files are pasted or stored or whatever. And in your, those files on your user, in your user folder on your local machine that, what are they called? Properties. So there's one for NM tracking and there's one for NM IBIS. And one of the properties in that file is where to look for this information. And it's always pointing to the NM IBIS, this is Hawaii's, web apps content XML. Oh, and earlier, this is an aside, I noticed an email talking about the root of XML, an XML file. It's similar to the root. So this is the XML directory or the XML folder, and these files are at the root of that folder. So ancillary values.xml, if it were in the HTML content folder, it would still be in the XML folder, but not at the root. But since it's out here, it's at the root of the XML folder. And similarly, let's see. If I go to content query module something. So query module, if I wanted to put something at the root of query module, it would be at this level. So that metadata tag, you could put it at the root of this XML tag, which, would be kind of there-ish. Or in any configuration, again, at the root. So these are elements that are at the root of the configuration element. Alrighty. All right. Any other questions? Anything else you want to talk about?
Does root just mean it's not in a subfolder?
Yeah. And the same with if you're talking about XML, it just means it's not inside a child element. So this,
Oh, okay, so it's like parent.
yeah, so configuration, at the root of configuration is the parent. Dataset ancillary values is a child of the configuration element. And this element is inside of a child. It's not at the root, but this one is at the root of the configuration element.
So then, Lois, with that, I'm thinking of that metadata stuff from Garth. So then, being at the root of the configuration, so then I would just put it under the configuration.
Right.
Like inside the configuration, right?
Yeah, but not
Okay.
inside something else that's inside.
Right. Okay.
So looks like I don't have any metadata. Oh, here it is. Metadata. So there's one, and it's at the root of query module. But if I wanted to have one for bladder cancer, a metadata file for bladder cancer, I'd move this down inside the bladder cancer configuration.
Okay, cool. I tried that and it didn't work, but at least I know I'm trying the right thing.
Well, the email you sent had it here.
Yeah, I tried a few different places.
Okay.
So, but thank you.
So yeah, we'll have to look at what's going on and maybe check your Tomcat log.
Okay.
When you look for it and it goes to the home page, look at your Tomcat console and see if there's an error message in there. It'll probably just say, you know, file not found. But then the question is, what file is it looking for? And what's the path it's looking for? And that should give us some clues.
Okay.
And we have time if you want to look at that, or if there's anything else you guys want to talk about. I'm okay until 11.
Yeah, if you could go ahead and walk Chelsea through that, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. Rena, did you have anything pressing?
I take that as a no.
I take that as a no too.
So then
should I share my screen, Lois?
Forgot I was muted. I'm fine with it.
Okay, so Garth said a new deployment or simply updating XSLT HTML query module builder site specific. And he said, then simply add the appropriate element to either the root of query module or query module. He doesn't say configurations, configuration, but it was configurations, configuration. Okay, so.
Actually, you know what? Now that I just tried it all again, it worked fine. So.
Oh, cool.
Never mind.
Okay.
I just needed to, maybe I closed my local and then restarted it. So maybe that did it. But anyway.
Oh, good.
I'm fine. Thank you.
Glad it's working.
I'll let you know if something else goes wonky, but at least the first one worked. So I'll just copy it for the rest.
Sounds good. Anything else? Let me take a quick look at my, go ahead and speak. I'm going to bring up the next PowerPoint and see if I missed anything in my.
Yeah, I'm just like wondering, like, do I need to worry, like, why I can't
No, don't let it go. Persist, as Elizabeth Warren said.
Is that something that we kind of need Paul to troubleshoot maybe, or?
I don't know. We can troubleshoot here. No, I think I covered everything in this little short user administration PowerPoint. Let's, so Rena, if you want to look at that, I'm guessing Stephanie and Chelsea probably don't want to stay on, which is fine. Or they can stay on. We'll just let them decide. How's that?
You can always do something else.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to stop the recording.